You're listening to the Energy is Love podcast.
Our COVID stimulus that came through at the end of last year. And that's what we did was we said, fuck it. We're not going to pay bills or buy groceries. We're going to buy new microphones. So
good investment.
11/11.
Right?
Nice.
It's a good time to start.
You did the right thing.
Yep. So here we are. Introduce yourselves for people that are tuning in. We do a terrible job of introducing people like in the beginning part of the show, right? There's always the little post part before we start. We'll do a terrible job introducing you. So you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves. I want to know how long you guys have been together first off.
3.5 years.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
For a while.
Okay.
Long enough to know that we'll be around for a minute. We'll see. We'll see what tomorrow looks like. It's always day by day.
Right.
Especially after last year. How did you guys fare?
After last year?
Yeah, with 2020. Was it?
I loved it.
Did you?
Yeah.
I did. And it's crazy when people say their years were so horrible. It was one of my best years in so many ways.
Well, like what?
I learned how to take the pause, which I think a lot of people did. So I did more self-care than ever before. But also, I took time to really decide what it is I wanted. Like, where I was at in life, is that really what I wanted to be doing? Are these the messages I wanted to share? Am I who I want to be? We had that time to do that. So that was good.
Was there any part of it that was a train wreck?
Oh, no, we failed.
I know we did.
We totally failed.
I'm just trying to make ourselves feel better about our train
I
wreck
know.
here.
No, I believe there were moments of stress just because I'm a small business owner.
Yeah.
So that definitely was a concern. That was the biggest stress I had.
Mm-hmm.
But I also got to a point where
Here, give it back.
I surrendered and just trusted that whatever's meant to be will be. There was no other way for me to do it, or I would have stressed myself out completely. So I was like, okay, it's whatever's supposed to happen. Let it happen. I'm ready. Bring it. If it fails because of this, then it fails, and that's okay. And if it doesn't, awesome.
You're amazing.
Yeah.
Ours was moments of...
I don't know what's happening.
It's okay. You'll find it.
I will.
Keep searching.
I will.
There's a thing that's going bippity boppity bouncy. There were moments of like awesomeness for us. Overall, it was a really good year. We got to spend way more time together than we ever have before. And we get to spend a lot of time together.
Mm-hmm.
So like we don't have regular jobs that we each have to go to. So we are spending the majority of our time together. And last year it was like 99% of the time we got to spend together, which most of the time was awesome.
Yeah, most of the time.
Most of the time. But then we both just went into like severe cases of depression and anxiety, and it just got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even like, for me personally, it wasn't even just like the whole COVID thing. I think after like the first month or two of that, I was just like, what the fuck ever. It was just an annoyance for me. Because it didn't really change. I mean, it changed a lot about our everyday life. But at the same time, it wasn't a super big stressor. We just had so many other things on top of it that came up and that were difficult and that were hard and that were challenging. And so like the mental capacity to process through emotion and stress was limited. And then it was like overtaxed to the point where we just fucking both fell apart. And we're still kind of both still getting put back together for the most part.
It's definitely was like a continual retrograde. Like all the stuff from the past is like, look at this, look at this, look at this. And I'm a homebody anyways. I'm very like, stay very in my house, in my walls. And so that wasn't hard until it was time to start going out. And I'm like, shit, this is hard just to try and like reintegrate myself. I got really used to just being in the walls. And so to try and get my butt out of the walls has been challenging too. And I'm like, I actually miss people. Let's go see some people. No. So
not an option.
No.
We had two pets die. Like we had a snake. Our son had a snake, and we tolerated a snake for several years. But on the day of the earthquake, the snake died. So whether or not that was like too much for the snake at that point or whatever the case may be. And then in October, the cat died, and the cat was like 16.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just like
That sucked.
lots of wonderful things on top of another throughout the entire year.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, it was great. Thanks for coming out, folks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's,
So it's Derek and AJ. How was your 2020? First off, what do you do?
I work at Hill Air Force Base,
Okay.
so I'm a maintenance mechanic.
Okay.
So my work wasn't really affected as much, but I didn't.
We get to hang out more too.
Yeah, it was there, but I just never really accepted it in a way. Like I just kept doing everything the same. I kept acting the same most of the time. So it wasn't really like everything was shut down for me or.
There were definitely moments of stress, but
Yeah.
I feel like just because the unknowing of what's happening in our world and the chaos of, what's true and what's not true and just all of the propaganda, I think that was the biggest conversation piece we had all year long.
yeah.
We really dove deep into, well, what happens if? Do we have our bug out boxes?
Everything was like suddenly on the table, right? Shit
Yes.
that you hadn't necessarily. I mean, you might have the itch in the back of your mind, like, we might have to think about this thing one day, but then you forget about it and you don't even worry about it. But then suddenly everything was like, shit, we got to worry about all of those things
Yes,
and
all
start
at
thinking
once.
about all the crazy things that could potentially happen. Because it just got obviously crazier and
Yes.
crazier as the year went by.
And in January, I specifically was saying, I have a feeling we need to get together some food storage
Yep.
and a bug out box and an exit plan. And he's just like, okay, doomsdayer. I'm like, no, really, I just have this really strong feeling. And then March happened.
Yeah.
And I was like, told you
ya.
so. I told you so.
Mine went as deep as I think it's going to be challenging. I think there's going to be some challenges, but it's going to be good. We're going to be
Yeah, we had an episode like in January of last year, I think,
it's going to be rough. There's going to be some
where
things.
we were like future casting what the year was going to be like.
And we had a crappy 6 months prior.
Yeah.
Like the end of our 2019 was just like
Total shit show.
it was a
Yeah.
total shit show.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I can see
okay.
the challenges are still there,
We
but
survived.
we survived this, so we can survive anything. And then 2020 is like,
Yeah.
Oh, you think?
It wasn't that bad.
no.
It'll be easily forgotten
Yeah.
one day.
Right?
One day. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
But we made
But,
it.
yeah.
Obviously, we're all still here
Yeah. Yeah.
We
It's
appreciate you
definitely
guys.
been a year.
coming out and being on the podcast.
Thanks for the invite. I was really excited. I love this podcast.
So do we.
If you haven't noticed on my spamming, like. I love it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And you were on an episode way back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
I was supposed to do like my due diligence and go back and find it and figure out which one it was. Because I don't know if you remember.
It was at the expo
Yeah, we recorded a live one.
where we
You guys
froze.
froze.
To death.
Yes, it was freezing.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
It was so cold.
It was really cold.
I think you ended it with, well, like, I'm numb. I can't feel anything, or I'm frozen, so we got to be done or something. It was
Yeah.
funny.
I don't remember
guys
what
were
episode
so
it was. Like I
cold.
said, I was going to go
It was a
back and
while ago.
look
It was a long time.
and listen. It was, yeah, I don't
I
remember.
think it was like double digit early.
But what I do remember was I was going to speak ill. I'm not going to speak ill. What I do remember was that, because there was a couple of people that sat down for that recording that we did together. And you were somebody that I thought, oh my gosh, I want to talk to you more, because there was so much more stuff that I wanted to learn about you and questions that I had to ask and all that kind of stuff. But obviously
Thank
we
you.
froze to death and we didn't have time. And fast
No.
forward to 15 years later and now we're here.
Yeah, it's been close.
The first thing, AJ, is I want you to tell people everything that you do, because you do a lot of different things.
I do a lot of different things. First and foremost, I'm going to be typical answer. I'm a mom. I have a 21-year-old who's in the Army, and he's everything to me. And then, like, business-wise, I
Just
own...
the one kid?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes. And then obviously my partner, he has an 8-year-old daughter who hangs out with us every other week. We have a week on, week off. And then I co-own a store, I should say, but I operate it and manage it and do all the things. It's called Vibes, Mind, Body, Spirit. And if you walk in, it's like a new age metaphysical spiritual shop. It's kind of hippy dippy. We have crystals and incense and, all of your favorite spiritual tools. But we teach classes and we have services. So massage, yum.
Yeah.
As you know, massage, different energy, healing opportunities. Of course, like Reiki or intuitive energy, hypnotherapy, past life regression, Ayurvedic consultations, and then we have some body stuff like foot soaks and reflexology and things like that also. And then I also host a podcast that started about, I think it was like 6 months after you started yours, and it turned into a radio show on KGRA, and that's called Soul Wanderings, and it's only a once a week show. And then what else? Oh, so many things. I just started a side business called the Sacred Raven Ritual Bath, because I take a lot of baths and do all the herbs and things. So I thought, why not share with everyone? But the biggest thing that started me opening all of these businesses, which I haven't been doing because they have taken up so much time, is art healing, helping people through trauma and PTSD through creating. So healing through creation, which I'll be getting back to because that is my purpose. That's my passion. And all of these things are tools. They're just tools along the way. And I love them all. They keep me busy.
Okay.
So that's a lot.
That
is
a
that
lot.
Everything? Oh, and I'll be starting a greeting card line called Create a Happy Day.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love this.
It was
That's a good
going to
idea.
launch last year,
Yeah.
but then it was going to launch in March when the whole shit show started. And I was like, yeah, let's wait.
I had my first art therapy healing session the last 3 months. I don't remember what month it was. It was the end of 2020. And that was powerful. And just to try and the way you can guide somebody to get out of their perfectionism and, well, I can't do this, I have to make it look good, just to like let their heart do whatever or trauma or whatever come out. That's powerful stuff. I've only experienced that once and it has been impactful.
Oh, good. I'm glad you had that experience.
How did you find that? Where did you find that part in you where you connected with that? And knew that
Through
you could
trauma.
Yeah.
Yes.
Dun, dun, dun,
Awesome?
dun.
I've been through a lot of trauma. I have
Yeah.
PTSD, which I'm healing. I've been going through some treatments even recently that have really been beneficial to my healing. However, it started very young, like from 3 years old on.
The art or the trauma?
The trauma. And so my way of working through that was hiding out in my room and doodling or writing, listening to music. I used to be a metalhead, so I don't know if you remember Headbangers Ball, but like Saturday nights I'd have notebook pages filled because they give you the name of the band and the title of the song, and so I'd practice my handwriting every time and write each one before the video started. Just anything to get out of my head, because I didn't talk to people about what was going on or how I was feeling, because that wasn't something I was really taught to do. But I felt peace and relief and comfort and all of the good feelings when I was creating. It was an outlet. And so I knew it was important. And I put it away for a long time because, you know, people, naysayers, like, you're never going to heal from this, or you are wasting your time, or whatever that looks like. And I came back to it during a really traumatic experience, like 10 years ago. And I use it ever since. It's something that I practice, not as much as I would like, because time is really short. But it is something that is a weekly practice for me.
So just to give people because I think I and probably Steph have an idea of what it looks like as far as like when you say, art,
Art healing.
yeah, art healing, art therapy, give people listening an idea who have no idea what that might look like or what that is.
Well, it can be anything, any type of art, any type of medium, I should say. For me, doodling is a thing, like really just numbing out to some tunes and just either drawing out the words or drawing patterns or whatever it is just to get out of my head. But my favorite medium is acrylic or watercolors, especially acrylic because I paint with my fingers. So all of my bigger paintings are all done with my fingers unless I'm using a pen for some detail work because I like to feel it. It's very intuitive. I like to feel the paint. I like to feel the color. I like to feel the emotion the color brings out in me. And I really go through like a deep meditative process. I smudge my canvas. I turn on music that's cohesive for how I'm feeling. And I literally just clear my mind and just tap into my heart energy and just allow it to become what it ends up becoming. I don't think about what I'm doing beforehand or the end result. I literally just play.
I love that.
And art journaling is huge too. That's where it all started, was with books. Like I would take old books and paint on them and doodle on them, and it became a thing. And I guess art journaling is a thing too. I've been doing it for my whole life and it's a thing. So that's cool.
How have you transitioned and taken that in a sense to help other people? Because you talked about that's one of the things that you've done at Vibes, and how has that played out?
So at Vibes, I've taught classes like art journaling and intuitive painting, mandala meditation, things like that. So it's helped people in that regards. I haven't done a whole lot in regards to classes. It's been more one-on-one, helping people through trauma and PTSD, through intuitive energy work and crystal healing, which I don't do anymore. I've put that to the side because there's this whole energy in, I don't know what it is, and this is a whole different topic, but things are very trendy right now when it comes to the line of work I'm in. TikTok has played a huge factor in that, Instagram a little bit. So I've just kind of stepped aside because it's not given the respect that I feel that it deserves, that type of work when you're working with someone in that regards.
I want to go down that rabbit hole. Okay. I want to dive into that a little bit. Derek, before we started, maybe it wasn't before you started, maybe it was on the podcast, I don't remember, but she lovingly referred to you as a muggle. Is there any part of, like, you guys have been together for 3.5 years, and I'm guessing that a lot of what she does and the stuff that she's been talking about just this little bit has kind of been an eye-opening experience for you in some regards, right?
Yes and no.
Okay. Is there any part of it that you, like, I'm trying to think of the right question. Like, what part of it do you take on? What part of it that you resonate with? What part of it do you guys meet eye to eye on a lot of things? Or do you think that, like, oh, she's just got this stuff that she does, and do you know what I mean?
First and foremost, I'm very supportive of everything she does. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, anything that she's started new or opened up, I've just been right there with her.
He's like, what can I do to help? How are we going to make this happen?
She's opened my mind. I mean, I'm very open-minded, and she's opened my mind to a lot of things, especially with me being a form of empath, so carrying a lot of stuff that's not mine. So she's really helped me with that. So it's kind of how it's worked. Like,
do you mind if I interrupt?
No, go ahead.
Also, trauma. He did a couple of tours in Iraq. So he has some of that energy that came into the relationship. So we worked through a lot of that also.
Yep.
So you were in the military?
Yes, 6 years.
Were you in the Air Force?
Army.
Mm. And then how long ago was that?
I got out in beginning of 2013.
Okay.
And also in a lot of relationships, like it shouldn't matter, but it does matter. There is a difference in our age, quite a big difference. So when
What
we
is it?
looked at it, 12 years.
Okay.
He's 12 years younger than I am. So we've looked at it and worked through it on very much of a spiritual level, I would think, instead of looking at it logically, because we are in two very different places. But spiritually, even though he's very much a muggle, he is also an empath. So he's able to feel and experience a lot of the things that are going on that you just can't deny. And I'm not trying to take it over. He's just I'll let you say what you want to say. But
A big thing that me and her talk about is like I'm more technological, like savvy in a way. So when me and her, she gets really frustrated and super short with a lot of things. So I know we help each other in that way, big time.
What does she get? What do you mean she gets frustrated?
Just with
Technology.
technology.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I want
just
to take
technology,
everything
period.
and
Do
chuck
you
it across
short
the
everything
room.
out too? Ruin everything?
Sometimes,
Yeah.
yes.
So
It's the same. He has to take care of all of that for me because it just does not work.
yeah.
It makes me angry.
I get it. That's why there's smoky quartz and stuff over there. So
Yes.
trying to help
It's all over our house
balance.
too.
So was it? See, now there's so many more questions. That's the thing that happens. Is there just there's too many things that I want to talk about. I need a list.
You need a list.
Yeah, I need a list. I don't even know where to start. I want to talk about your time in the military. I want to talk about PTSD. I want to talk about prior to that, right? I think the decision to go into the military is a big decision that was often driven by obviously a bunch of different things, right? And I think typically it's driven by, not all the time driven by like trauma or stress or something like that. There's definitely those people that I think make that decision from a place of like, honor and their parents or their father or their grandfather, kind of a heritage type thing. But I think oftentimes too, it stems from a place of, their life isn't necessarily going in the direction that they wanted to go in. I'm not saying that's you by any means.
Mine came from two, actually. I can
Okay.
be more specific. It was with my father because he also served. And then I grew up really, really fast. And I wanted to. It wasn't a force like that behind like my parents or anything like that. I really wanted to get out and be in the world as soon as possible.
How old were you when you enlisted?
18, as soon as I turned 18.
Yeah.
What do you mean you grew up really fast?
I just wanted to be out there in the world. I wanted to be an adult when I was a teenager. I wanted to be a teenager when I was a little kid. So, it's just, I wanted to move on and do everything really, really fast.
Yeah. So you enlisted at 18.
Baby.
Yeah.
Like literally a child, right?
Yep.
Yeah. A little tiny baby.
How old was your son?
19.
19.
Baby.
Yeah.
He's only 21.
He's still a baby.
Yeah, he is a baby. And I think, wow, what a huge sacrifice. He's no longer his own person, which is not how he was raised.
Yeah.
It goes against everything. But I'm so proud of him because
Yeah.
he made that choice. But same for Derek. Like, I know that with what you've shared with me, your life also with growing up fast came with consequences. And you were able to escape a different life path because you chose to go into the military, where you could have gone
Yeah, there was some.
completely different, darker
Were
way.
you getting into some shit?
Yeah, I was getting into some trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was some. That was actually what got me out of trouble, was joining the military. 'Cause
See?
it was either that or
Jail
serve
time?
some jail time. And the judge was super supportive of it, so he's like, "Oh, you're scot free. So if you're joining the military."
What
it was
was
just
the
like our last guest, Cecil. He had kind of the same thing. He's like, but I'm joining. I'm joining the Marines. The judge was like, oh, they'll take care of you. Go ahead.
yeah.
So kind of that's
What did you do?
It's just wrong place, wrong time, but kind of wasn't also the wrong. I was in Alamogordo, New Mexico, is where I was living at the time,
Okay.
and I was working at a Sonic. Took my lunch, decided to smoke some weed, and started realizing that the place was getting surrounded by federal agents, and I didn't realize what was going on. So we decided to go inside, went back to work, and the place got raided.
For what?
Supposedly our manager was distributing drugs through the Sonics.
Okay.
Wrong place, wrong time.
Wake up call.
Wow.
So it was totally
So
Breaking
each of you-
Bad.
Yeah, right.
Like
Yes.
the chicken joint in Breaking Bad. He was just using the Sonics, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just was, it was kind of, it was rough. I mean,
So
Yeah,
I
it
don't
was-
like just because you were an employee there. You
because
got
they seen
scooped
us
up in it?
smoking.
Okay.
So that was part of it. They seen us smoking in the car because there was about 6 of us in a car. So
They're like, clearly you're
So-
behind this.
Fucking
Wow.
marijuana.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is ridiculous. I
It is
absolutely
so
hate-
ridiculous.
Agree.
So it turned out to be a maybe a blessing in disguise, I guess.
Yeah,
Like, how do you look at
definitely.
your time in the
Oh,
military?
I loved every minute of it, honestly. I mean, I would never take it back. Sometimes I wish I was still in, but
What was your favorite part about it?
just seeing the structure, seeing everything, being able to travel. I know people saying like going to Iraq in the middle of a war zone was not the greatest, but who's really going to go over there again?
Yeah.
I've seen things, I've talked to those people over there, and just the lessons that I've learned from them, and just how similar they are to us. Is the similarities, like even though they're a third world country, there's so much similarities. Even like you want to talk, I had countless hours of talking to them about religion, just all kinds of things, and I'll never get to do it again. So just that type of stuff.
That's always the amazing thing, I think, is when you do get out, like outside of your bubble, outside of like the norm of your everyday life, especially when you're traveling and you do start talking to people, you get that really clear sense that, oh, we're far more alike than we are different.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's kind of spooky in a way.
It
It is.
And then where you're at today, right?
Mhm.
AJ outed you for PTSD, and this is some trauma from the military, which is obvious, right? That's you don't go through a process like that and not have something after the fact, right?
Yeah.
It leaves something on you, regardless of what the experience was like.
Mhm.
How has it been for you? Because if you got out and you said 2013, so what's the process been like for you to come to terms with it, to have awareness of it? What are you doing in a sense to cope and manage and deal with it?
There was a lot of times my actions and the things I was doing was really I buried it. I buried it for many years, and when I met AJ, she brought it back. She made me face it, honestly. She was like, yeah, no more. You're not going to bury it anymore. And I did a lot of stupid things. So finally, I just faced it. She helped me and guided me to somebody that could help me face it. And I'm thankful for it. I mean, I accept it now.
Could you see the ways that it was like affecting your life?
Oh yeah, big time.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It was affecting my life, my relationships with anybody and everybody. So
At the time you were
Our
aware
first
of
year
it?
together was
it was
not
rough.
easy.
Yeah.
It wasn't easy, and it was all linked to what he was experiencing internally. And I was like, get your shit together, or we ain't gonna be together.
Very true. And it affected my relationship with my daughter too. So
Yeah.
and so like that's were my two biggest wake ups. So
In what ways do you feel like it affected your relationship with your daughter? She says she's 8, right?
yeah, she's it.
Okay. So it was probably right after you got home, or okay.
Yeah, it was just I was very distant. I wouldn't spend time with her even when she was with me, and just kind of let her do her thing. And I really wouldn't have that one-on-one time with her. And I would, I'd always take her to my mom's or something like that. So
I have a question for you.
Mhm.
So like in TVs and movies and things like that, when people portray PTSD specifically from like a soldier that's returned from war, that's come home, or they always, not always, but typically it's portrayed in this, like in a really stereotypical way of like, they have a flashback, or they get, they see something or they hear something, and the next thing you know, they're lost in the memory, or they have some outburst of anger or rage, or how, like, when you look at that stereotype that is usually portrayed in regards to kind of how it's experienced by soldiers that come back, how accurate do you feel like it is? Is there parts of it that you think are really accurate, or do you think, like most things in movies and TV, that it's kind of not necessarily blown out of proportion, but just not portrayed accurately?
I don't think that the movies or anything like that could ever do the justice. I mean, they can sit there and show like, oh, there's flashbacks of stuff happening, and you know, these guys lose their, you know, their shit, and they fight anybody or whatever. Like, I just don't think it does the justice, because there's no feeling. There's no, you see slight emotion, but there's always feeling behind the emotions, and you don't see what that person is really feeling deep down inside of everything that they went through, because they're just showing that they, like, I feel like they skip so many steps. I mean, a portion of it could be correct, but then I don't feel like it does the full justice of what actual, you know, PTSD, you know, people go through.
If you were to, and I don't mean to like pick this apart, but this is like the shit that I love, unfortunately. I just find it so fascinating. And it's not from like the outside perspective looking in, it's my own journey, my own experience, my own process and things like that. I wasn't in the military. I didn't go to war or anything like that. But I have copious amounts of trauma and PTSD. And what if we were to, you know, rewind like 5 years ago or whatever, when maybe you were kind of in the thick of the trauma and the everything that you were experiencing and going through. Looking back now, what would a stereotypical episode, and even though episode isn't accurate, right? But just kind of what would it look like from the outside, especially now, hindsight, being able to go back and look. What did it look like for you? Like, I'll tell you what it looked like for me, okay? So for me, all of my coping mechanisms were like alcohol, sex, chaos, like chaos just in general, right? So it's pretty much just let's drive my life into the ditch, meaning I bounced around from jobs to jobs. I was a, you know, super non-existent father. I could have moments of like tapping in and connecting with my kids, but they were really brief. And the majority of it was just kind of sustaining life with trying to seek out anything that would give me some sort of crazy fucking feeling or emotion, right? Some sort of heightened experience. I remember one time I was working at a bar at the time. I was a bartender, and after the bar closed, then everybody still hangs out and typically goes somewhere and drinks and does whatever the case may be. And this time we ended up in somebody's truck. I say I was with the girl that I was dating at the time. We ended up in somebody's truck, and we drove up the canyon in the middle of December. So it was like fucking winter time. Roads weren't plowed or anything like that. I don't know what the plan or the intention was, but at some point coming back down the canyon, the truck flips because he was drunk and driving like a fucking idiot. And so the truck flips and we fly off into the ditch, and, you know, everything happens. And so that would have been like a snapshot of what my life was like during those moments of deep, deep disconnection, right? That's the extreme of like, oh, this sounds like a wonderful idea. Let's get into a truck with somebody who I don't know who the guy was. I wasn't friends with him. It was a friend of a friend of a friend, or really it was probably just somebody that was fucking drunk hanging out at the bar anyways. Yeah. And we all pile into the truck. And the next thing you know, I'm like laying in the side of the truck with everybody piled on top of me because I was on the side that landed. I'm just like, what the fuck is going on with your life, Craig? There's always a part in the back of my mind where it's like, what are you doing? This isn't who you are, right? So that's kind of the question. What did it look like for you? Because it doesn't look like
sounds like your story.
You know what? It's funny because everything you pretty much explained is almost exactly how it was. Like, I mean, it got to the worst part when I can't even say the worst part because it's where I met AJ.
Okay.
Was when I became a bartender. And
yes, I met him at the bar.
And that was like when I was hitting the bottom. And it was almost the same thing. It was sex, alcohol. I didn't like being around people. The only time I did was when I was drunk, but then I didn't really pay attention to what was going on. Another wake up call was like when my daughter finally called me out. You know, that's my biggest.
What did that look like?
She just told me that she's like, you don't pay attention, you don't hang out with me, you don't do stuff with me. You know, I'm just over here, and then all you do is, I was big into video games. That's all I would ever do, was play video games. And she called me out all the time on it. So that was one of the other big wake up calls for me. But yeah, that's what it looked like for me, especially when I was in the military. I drank like there was no tomorrow. Drinking about 7 times a week, so 6-7 times a week. So
Like while you're in the military, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's like the because that's the I'm assuming that that's the lifestyle, that's the norm, that's kind of the way that it, you know, soldiers, that's kind of the way that you guys cope and manage with what's going on.
For the most part, yeah. I mean, not as much as I probably was doing it, but I mean,
did you have a history of like alcohol and anything like that prior to the military or prior to this time period in your life?
No, I didn't really drink any alcohol until after I graduated high school.
And what about like your mom and dad? Did you come from an alcoholic background or anything like that?
They weren't like terrible. I mean, my dad always drank rum and Coke. They always had my family over, play cards on the weekends, and they would all drink and stuff like that. But it wasn't like, you know, terrible. Like, I mean,
Social.
Yeah, it was just more of a social thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, I wasn't really bad around it. I think I drank because it numbed me. That was honestly why I did it.
I can relate.
Yeah. Like I said, everything you said was just like, I was like, okay, all right. Minus the wreck.
Thank goodness.
So what was it like when you guys, go ahead, babe.
No, go ahead.
What was it like when you guys got together? Like you said, you basically said, hey, get your shit together. But to be fair, and I only know this from experience of Stephanie and I, like, it's not to say you had your shit together either. Like our shit kind of never really fully gets together. And so what was it like for you? Do you know what I mean? The awareness of seeing what he's going through and kind of having maybe some deeper understanding of it, but yet how do you help? Like, that's always the big thing, right? How do you help somebody that you love and care about?
Well, I recognize his behavior because I had similar behavior. I was going through my own things on and off through my whole life. So it was very recognizable. But, you know, when I first saw Derek, it was really a profound moment for me. I had been told for a while that someone would be coming into my life. And my grandma passed some time ago. I felt her tap my shoulder, like, this is him. You know what I mean? So across the way, and I saw him, and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Not that he wasn't attractive. I was just like, I'm going to meet someone in a bar. Really? This is how it's going down? Like, it wasn't
And it's the bartender to boot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I lived that life too. So I was like, okay. But I saw him differently. And I remember he looked at me too. And nothing happened. I used to go there after we had this group setting at Vibes. We'd go there and have a beer and a burger or something. And so I was seeing him on a regular basis, kind of getting a feel for him, but wasn't interested because I was, you know, doing my own, having my own experiences too, similar, but just different. And so
Like what, AJ? There's a lot there.
They're similar but different. I was having relations with several people. I didn't know what I wanted. I had been single for 7 years before I met Derek. I dated people. I dated someone a little more seriously for about 10 months, but it was short-lived. And so I was just, you know, figuring things out and had no intention of being in a relationship, but there was just something energetically there. And so when we were getting to know each other, I didn't really take it too serious at first. I knew there was something, but I was like, yeah, we'll see, because I wasn't wanting commitment. I don't think you were either. We weren't really looking for that. But we moved in together. He moved in with me after 3 months, I would say. We decided if we're going to do this, let's just do it. Mm-hmm. He was looking for a new place anyway. So I'm like, we might as well just try it out if we're going to do the thing. So the first year was like literally we were together a lot and really getting to know each other. And so I think that's what did it for us. We were committed really quick. And so we got to know each other on a different level than if we were just dating on the weekends or something. And so I really feel like that was the accelerant right there. And so the first year was really challenging. I got to see sides of him I didn't like. And I was like, I do not want this in a partner. I do know that. That's why I haven't settled. Just behavior and personalities and habits and things like that. Plus, I had been alone for so long, like I said. So I was very particular on how I have my home, what kind of energy is in it, the people I bring around. And I like peace and quiet. I like the temperature a certain way. You know, just the things you get in your own way when you're alone that long. So he learned a lot about me. The first year too. And so we really had a dance. And sometimes the way he danced was not the way I danced. And we questioned it. Well, he questioned it mostly. Our first year, we're both runners. When it gets hard or serious, we're like, peace out, right? And we did that a few times the first year. Instead of talking about it and really dealing with it, I was like, fine, go then. And he did. And then I was like, wait, no, that's not what I wanted. Come back. And he had to go through what he had to go through in order to come back. And I had to really get clear with myself. Is this really what you want? And do you work this hard? Do you fight this hard to be with someone? Or do you just move on? Like cut your losses? So I don't know if that answers your question.
I don't remember what the question was, so it totally does. Baby, I know you've got a lot of questions too. I can feel that.
There's so many similarities. It relates so much to your journeys together, figuring things out. Runners, I definitely struggle with commitment. It's that connection, that commitment, and I viewed it as being trapped.
Yes.
And so it was panic, a lot of trauma. So that was also something that began as a little baby girl for me. So I relate a lot with that. I love that you had that knowing. I love that I didn't have something profound as somebody tapping on my shoulder, but it was kind of like he came in the room and I was like, fuck. Here we go. Yep. I'm not ready for this. Nope. Like I fought hard against us.
He looks at me like, yep, we fought. We were like, no, yes.
But he's just amazing.
How long have you guys been together?
We've known each other almost 10 years, and then we've been together almost 9 of those 10.
That's awesome.
And then this year will be our 6-year anniversary. We got married in 2015.
That's so cool.
So, one of the things, go ahead.
No, one of the things.
No, please.
Okay.
I've got so many.
Good.
I'm going to put them on the list.
I'm bringing it back because I'm super fascinated by your connection and your awareness of how you were dealing with trauma and what worked for you when you were younger. Like this has always been there. I was just trying to see like the connection of that. I'm trying to tap in. There's so much of my childhood that I don't know. I just don't know. And things have been coming back and some are like good and fine. And some are like, I don't want to know that. Yes. And so that has been going, and I'm trying to put the pieces together of what did I do other than completely disassociate. And then when I got a little bit older, partied it out of my system. I was like anything I could do to feel something other than what I was feeling is what I did. So was that something that, because you look back and this is something that you always did you have awareness that this is what worked for you? Or did it circle back to like, oh, I've been doing this?
It circled back. Yeah. Similar. I grew up really, really fast. I was going into bars at 14, 15 years old, hanging out with guys who were way too old to be hanging out with a 14 and 15-year-old, had really crappy experiences, but I also didn't understand how crappy they were until I got older because I just was having fun, you know? And so drinking, doing all kinds of things, going all kinds of places. I'm really fortunate to be alive. But I definitely didn't know during the time I was dealing with any of that. I didn't know that it wasn't normal. I didn't know that what happened to me was not happening to everybody else. Do you know what I mean? Like, so when I got older and I had more of an awareness of why I was behaving and acting this way, and this was recent, last 10 years, then I knew, oh, this is why you do this, and this is why you were healing with it this way.
Yeah.
I didn't know better. I really am a baby when it comes to the whole healing and spirituality and being a human, like awareness of being a human thing. It's very new to me. You look back though and you're like, oh, but I knew that. And I was aware of this, but you don't understand those gifts until you go through something major or traumatic or whatever that looks like. And that's how it worked for me.
Yeah.
Are you willing to discuss the trauma from your childhood that led to some of these things?
I'm always willing to talk about what happened to me. Details aren't really important because people, I think, just like to know the details because they like the gore and the scare of what really happened to me. And I feel like that's not important in the big scheme of things. But since the age of 3, going up until 9-10 years ago, I've had every type of abuse that you can imagine. So sexual, physical, mental, emotional, everything. And it's not that my parents didn't provide me a good life. My parents did the best they knew how, just like we do. We don't know until we know, right? And
did you grow up in Utah?
I did. I grew up in Salt Lake, in North Salt Lake. And you know, I don't want to out my family. I don't want to share their stories, but things had been going on long before I came around. And just everyone was so conditioned not to talk about it, but still come together and bring people around what was going on, right? And so I was never safe. I was never protected in that way. And growing up in those experiences that I brought up, like just hanging around the crowds I was hanging around and the older guys I was hanging around, some really, really shitty things happened to me. And then when I got older, just my inability to have real, genuine, healthy relationships with men. I always attracted very abusive men. I liked the bad guys, but that always came with a price. And so I went through a lot of really physical and emotional and mental abuse situations. And it wasn't until I've been married twice, but my last marriage, I was with the worst of the worst. Like he literally tried to kill me. That's how our marriage ended. And that was the moment. I had a near-death experience through that situation, and you know, obviously received a lot of information. Didn't know what it was. Was really confused, and from healing from that situation and being put into another experience of spirituality was all very confusing. And so it took a couple of years for me to really figure that out. But the trauma was the biggest thing in all of those situations that brought me to where I am, to having the experiences I have now and helping people, because, you know, I literally have been through so much. Like some people go through one of those things in their life, and I have been through more than 2 handfuls of things in my life. And I'm in this place now where the gratitude is there, which is crazy because I look at it so differently. I'm not a victim anymore, where it used to dictate my life, and life sucked and everybody sucked. And I just had a very different outlook and perception on what life is and was meant for me. But I don't do that now. And that's why I do what I do. I don't want people to feel that way. I don't want them to feel like I went through this experience, so my life is over and I'm never going to heal from it because it was so bad. Yeah, it is so bad. But you will heal. You will heal to it on your level, or to your, to whatever limit that looks like. But it will get better. And you don't feel that way when you're in the thick of it, as you know. You don't see the other side of that. And so, obviously, in my position now, I really feel strongly that I signed up to do all the hard things, which is so cliche and so kind of, when I hear that, I'm like, why would anyone sign up for that? And I'm sure you guys have had these conversations before. I don't know if we sign up for everything. I mean, no one would really sign up for some of these things, right? Some things just happen. And it's what you do with it afterwards. Like, what choices are you going to make with it afterwards that matter? And so that's what I just decided. I didn't want to be miserable anymore. I didn't want to hate life every day anymore. I didn't want to feel the way I was feeling. And so on the other side of that, what does that look like? And so that's just what I've done. Trauma is really, 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 really a horrible thing for anyone. And everyone looks at trauma differently. Like, you could be crossing the street and almost get hit by a car, and that could be traumatic for you, right? And that could just change your whole entire life. But someone could get beaten almost to death, or stabbed, or raped, or, whatever that looks like, and that could be traumatic. So we're all different, and we're all having these different experiences, and it doesn't matter what level of trauma it is. Trauma is trauma. And it's just getting through that, like figuring out how to get through that. Or if you can't get through it, like how to navigate for the time being.
I'm scared to say next what I want to say.
Don't be scared.
Well,
just say it.
Because I love when we have people that come on the podcast that are willing to talk about trauma, and that they're willing to talk about the things that have led up to where they are today, and the way, everything that they've experienced, and the way that they, all of that stuff. I get so excited about it, because one of the things that I love about the podcast is that we get to have these conversations for people to hear and listen to, so that they don't feel alone, so that they can realize that they're not the only one, so that they realize that, do you know what I mean? It's okay to talk about, it's okay to express. It causes all sorts of a variety of chaotic things in our lives, right? You said, but one of the things, and I don't remember what it was last year, Stephanie and I were doing an episode together, because we tend to talk a lot about our shit and discuss it openly on the podcast, as well as like after the fact. Steph and I kind of are just always perpetually in this constant state of processing and feeling and not feeling, and disconnect and reconnect, and just this regular ongoing process of healing from shit. And one of the things that we had awareness of in the moment, and that I think I have taken sense and really tried to carry on through with, like, remember that moment and then continually try to incorporate it, is we sugarcoat a lot of things, and we'll sugarcoat things first and foremost so that I think it's initially easier for other people, but then also in our own minds and in our own processes, right? We try to make things softer and easier so that they're easier to get over, and so that they're easier to heal from. And that sugarcoating is a coping mechanism, I think. I think it's very beneficial and helpful at times, and it's useful. But I think on the big scope of things, especially when I think about, because all the time I think about like the one listener. We joke about our number one fan, Barb, that listens. There's not really a Barb, but Barb is our, there's a Barb somewhere.
Hey, Barb.
But I think about the people that are listening in their car driving, or I think about the woman that is doing dishes and is listening to this podcast, and the things that she's hearing, and she's definitely filling in the blanks with what you're talking about. But I think that there's power in specific words that are used to describe experiences that we go through, because then we take the power of those words away. Like we take the, you talked about things going on in your family that weren't talked about and nobody addressed, and we were still, expected to be in that environment without it ever being discussed and talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the power of those words. I think that if we really discuss those things and if we really clearly identify those things, it's not from a perspective of like trying to, what's the word? Like we're not trying to sensationalize anything, or we're not, it's really just, it is what it is, right? My trauma is what it is. I can sugarcoat it all day long. It doesn't change the fact that, like my father was physically abusive at times and would hit us, but the majority of his abuse was mental and emotional abuse. He was very overbearing and controlling and manipulative and mean and disconnected emotionally and all sorts of other things. But it would be really easy for me to just sugarcoat that and say he was an asshole and he was mean to us. Well, yeah, he was that as well. But on the flip side, he was also loving and kind, right? But there was a portion of his child rearing, right, the way that he raised us, that was fucked up and wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And of course he did what he did, and he did all the blah, 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 right? But the specifics of things, I think, AJ, are important. And so I'm hoping that you will be willing to go into things, or at least label them specifically of what you experienced. Because the way that you labeled it was, I experienced all forms of abuse from the times that I was 3, right? Which is accurate, but I think that there's a part of that that's a little bit of softening the edges of it, so that it's both easier for you as well as maybe even easier for people to hear. But I think there's just power in people hearing, this is what I went through and this is what I experienced, because there's so many people that have gone through and experienced the same things, and they're trying to come to terms with it. And do you know what I mean? And I'm so fucking tired of sugarcoating stuff. I'm really tired of soft corners and easy things, because shit's not easy.
No, you're right. And I respect all of that. Absolutely. What were you going to say?
I'm having a bit of a reaction to this. Like, I agree with you so much. And that was like our moment of, we need to say the words. But I'm over here feeling this and all the connection that I have with you. And I have this like protective thing that's coming up right now, and I'm like,
I was feeling something from you, and I was like sending you this energy, like it's okay.
Like, we need.
That's why we don't keep sharp things over there by her.
I said it was. I'm an open book, and I'm open to sharing, and I couldn't agree with you more. And I really appreciate that you want that vulnerability and not to soften the edges so much. I do that, and I have always done that. I feel as, I wouldn't say respect either. Let me feel about this for just a moment. I feel like I need to protect other people because what I experienced has been so traumatic for me that I don't want to be the reason someone else feels a certain way, right? I am very protective over people. Not that I want to take their experiences away from them, because obviously by me sharing, I offer that for them, and they have a choice to take on that experience or not. But as a courtesy, I've always just been like, it's bad. Let me just leave it at that. But I'm okay not leaving it at that.
When you say you want to protect people, are you talking about like people that are listening? You don't want to trigger them in a sense, and because oftentimes we talk about stuff on this podcast that is hard for people to hear and listen to, right? And it's going to re-trigger some of the things that they have too experienced.
I'm laughing because of your episode of trigger warning. This would be a trigger warning.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what happened to me when I was young, I don't know if that happens to everybody. I know it happens from my experience of working with a lot of people, that it happens to a lot of people, the sexual abuse, especially in the home. Not my home, but in a home setting, in a home environment with your family, right? I don't know if I really need to get into that. We all have some kind of, I shouldn't say all, I shouldn't generalize it that way. But a majority of us do have that experience with a family member that is not okay. And it's not okay. And what happened isn't our fault. And it's not their fault in a lot of ways. They make the choice, yes, but there's something going on inside of them that causes them to act out in that way also. And instead of being angry at that, I have learned, I wouldn't even say compassion, because I'm still very angry that it happened to me and the people I love. But there's an understanding of it being something that they are also fighting as well. And that's how they chose to react. That action didn't, I think I was so young. And like when you say you don't remember a lot of your childhood, I remember it in flashes because I buried it so much. And because it was so normal and wasn't talked about and was hidden, and other people were experiencing it, but I didn't know. It was all, we didn't talk about it, right? So it's not something that I ever really felt like I've had to deal with. I'm very much aware in my interactions and relationships how it comes up for me now. It's very, it has messed me up in a lot of ways when it comes to, I don't know. Here's a topic for you. This is the best way I can explain it. Like, there is this thing that goes on inside of me because I'm a very sexual person. And I sometimes go internal and wonder why. And so, of course, that comes up. Like, was this, put into me because of my experience? Is that why? And does that make me sick? Does that make me a bad person because of what happened to me? And now I want that, but I don't want it in the way they wanted it. But does this make sense?
Holy fucking can of worms, Batman.
I know. I said
it makes sense.
So this sexual part is, there's a lot about my past that, this is the biggest thing for me. And as much as it was hurtful and traumatic for me, it has also been something I've used to escape that exact thing.
Yes.
I don't know how else to explain it, but that has been one of the biggest things for me, and biggest eye-opening experiences and healing experiences all at the same time. Traumatic, eye-opening, healing, depressing, like all of the things. I just look at it. I look at those relationships, the sexual relationship part of it, very different. Although I'll still freak, but I don't have shame associated with it anymore. Like I let that go, but it doesn't mean it doesn't pop in. It's not like, oh, you like that because of this.
Mm-hmm.
So does that process, right? Because you said that there's times that you'll kind of, I don't think you said freeze, but like you'll go into your head in those moments and be like, is that because of the trauma from the past? Is that because of the sexual abuse from your past? Is that like in the act of sex, or is that just like in everyday life? You're kind of, I wonder, like like something during sex, or during foreplay, or whatever the case may be, and then you'll have that moment where you're lost in your head. You're like, oh, I wonder if this is here because of that. Is that what you're saying?
I wouldn't say, no, not in my life now, definitely. Maybe in the past that has come up. I don't see it that way now. I don't know. I don't know how to really answer that. I don't know. It's just very random. It's nothing really triggers it. I just have a very wild imagination, and where I've come into my own, where I believe in passion and being very purposeful with my body. And I love like the whole sexual essence of our beings and our connection. And it's just a completely different vibrational thing now, where before it was let's go do whatever tonight with whoever because I don't want to feel A, B, and C. Like, let's go have some drinks and have sex. And, it's a very different place. It's a very different vibration. I don't know how else I can explain that. You obviously are relating to me.
Yes, very much.
I think a lot of people can too. I mean, you think of it, addictions don't always come in the form of drugs.
No.
I mean, we obviously know food's an addiction, and
I think drugs are probably the minority
Yeah.
of addiction, right?
Mhm.
I think that, like you said, you're starting to list off food,
yeah, TV, video games,
sex, all
sex,
sorts of different things.
and I mean, drama, whatever that looks like. People have these addictions, and we're all running from something. We're all hiding from something. We're all healing from something, and we all just do it differently. And I think that's been one big thing. But the sexual trauma I've experienced wasn't just from that. I mean, I lost my virginity by being raped. And I was in situations in my teen years that, you know, now we're all aware that sex trafficking is going on, and that older guys like younger girls, that was normal. I didn't know that was wrong. I was just like, oh, I'm getting paid attention to, and he thinks I'm pretty, right? So it was just a thing. And again, where I was being raised not to know different. We didn't talk about feelings. We didn't talk about what's right. We didn't have stranger danger conversations. And so things were happening. And so I had those experiences, and you know, all of those I really have blocked. I know they have affected me physically. I know they affect me mentally and emotionally in some way, vibrationally, even today. But it's not anything that I focus on. The biggest thing that has been for me, that has been the hardest thing to overcome, I would say, is the betrayal of my husband. Just having someone who is very narcissistic, gaslighting, abusive mentally, emotionally, physically, all of those things, that has been really hard to overcome. And I don't know if it's because it was such a psychological mindfuck, if you will, and healing from that was the biggest thing for me, or what it was. But that in particular, and then when I was 19, I lived in a basement apartment, and I had a home invasion. So he broke into my home. He kicked the door down. I knew him. He was a friend of a friend, and he was all doped up on whatever. But anyway, it was a really hard experience. It was hours of being beaten and stabbed twice and literally left for dead. Like I lived in this basement apartment, and someone found me on the main ground level, but I don't have any recollection. It was just, you know, they found me there, and I woke up in a hospital 2 weeks later. So that in itself started the biggest. I was 19, so I was old enough now to start understanding. Do you know what I mean? Because when you're young, you don't know. I think kids know now. There's a bigger awareness, but I didn't know then. And so having that experience, coming right out of it, it was the alcohol. It was the sex. Like everything caught up. Oh, I'm such a hand talker. Everything came up to that point where I kind of just lost it. I lost myself. I lost a lot of things. I was in the darkest, most horrible place. And it wasn't until that experience 9-10 years ago, it was 9 years ago, that it was the wake-up call. Like, oh, the last, however long, 19 to 10 years ago, you have been living in hell. And mind you, I got pregnant with my son, like, right after that, because that was part of my experience of just doing and being reckless, and my beautiful blessing came about from that and was my wake-up call to get my shit together. But that doesn't mean I got my shit together. It just means, got a good job, and I got a car, and I got a place for us to live, and I provided for him. But I was not okay.
Yeah.
And it's been like that. And even now it has shown up in our relationship. The PTSD, we went and saw a movie last weekend, and I was in full-blown panic attack. Like, the adrenaline of being chased and hiding from someone who's trying to get you, the emotions that came with that. I couldn't breathe. My heart was racing. I had to get out of there. And it's crazy because I've done so much work, right? I've done all the healing sessions, and I've gone to all the therapies, and I've done everything, every modality you can think of. But yet this stupid, corny, dumbass movie put me in panic. I freaked. I was like, I can't watch this anymore. I had to look around. I'm in a movie theater. I'm safe. I'm okay. But I was freaking out. And it's just that. It never goes away. I don't feel like the trauma ever will go away. I always say it's gone, or I'm hopeful, or try to do my best and stay positive. But the realistic part of it all is it's never going to go away. Unfortunately, it's always going to be here. Unfortunately, and fortunately, it's something that I've gone through. So, talking about it is important. And I've always believed that. And I've done my best to be as authentic and real as possible in sharing my story without it being my story that I shared and being a victim or a survivor because of it. Because I don't like that energy. It's something I went through, a lot of things I went through, and it sucks. It really freaking sucks. But this is, you just do what you can do every day, and this is how I'm dealing with it. I want to help other people work through their stuff because it helps me work through my stuff. It's kind of selfish, but also very healing for both of us. So,
Baby, I want to say so many things, but
go ahead.
No.
And I ramble.
You
You guys got to cut me off. Hey, that's enough.
First off, thank you.
Yeah.
Right, that was definitely not soft corners or sugarcoating, and I appreciate it because, like I said, I think there is a lot of value there. But I'm going to be quiet.
You're going to be quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
He's putting you on the spot.
I know, it's right. I'm ready to go. There's, my goodness. I'm seeing other aspects of, and I feel like it's there. I've always had this awareness, but I didn't really realize it till this moment of, I thought sex was a disconnect and kind of a going, but just hearing that, I realized, there was a part of it that was me controlling the situation. Nothing was happening to me. I was doing this. I was taking my control back. Even if it was something, there had been moments where I knew, there's that moment of where this doesn't stop anyways. So what am I going to do in this moment? This is happening regardless. So I can have this thing happen to me, or I can control this thing. So I use that as my own safety mechanism too. Plus, you're not in danger if they don't feel like they're taking something from you. You're safer in that way as well. There were things, my childhood was a mix of things that I thought was normal, but I realized so much of it was, I knew it wasn't normal. I knew it was wrong. I knew it was bad, but I didn't think that what was happening to me was what was bad. I thought I was bad. I thought it was my fault and I was in trouble. And so I kept causing this, and it just made it so that just carried on through much. Now my words are going to go blending.
I do
and
that
crazy.
too. I do that too. I relate to that so much. So very much. I blamed myself for a lot of things. Like if I was a better kid, or if I was a better friend, or whatever that looked like. And not only the blaming, I would make myself as invisible as possible too, on the flip side of that. So, I'd started wearing baggy clothes so nobody would see me, or I'd put on the weight so I wasn't attractive, do whatever that looked like. But then on the flip side of it, when I felt like the rebel part come out in me, you know what? Screw them. I can dress and be whoever I want, right? And so then I would get all pretty again, and then those experiences would show me, nope, it is because you're too much, or you dress like this, or you act like this. It's attractive to people, And so you're going to get treated this way. Right? So then I would put on the way and put on the baggy clothes and do it all over again. It was like this cycle of, this is my fault. I'm in control of everything. This is because of me. It's such a psychological, I don't know how to explain it. But you get it.
I get it.
I wish there was some magic word or something we could say that would give someone this like, ding, that's why, and this is the reason. But I don't think there ever will be. I don't think there's anything profound or inspirational or spiritual or whatever that looks like that you can say that's going to help someone heal or be better. Yeah. Because we all have our own, such a unique individual experience of being a human all on our own. And I know we can take tidbits like from your show or from a book or whatever that looks like, but it's an ongoing journey. It's a never-ending process. And I just don't think that those experiences are ever meant to be forgotten anyway. I think they get easier and they can soften, but they're always going to show up in one way or another.
Yeah. Like what you said about the, like, I've done so much work. Like it keeps coming up. You think you're in this spot and here we go. And that thing pops back in and you are just...
Yeah.
All
it
right.
can even be a
Here's another
smell
one.
or a food or like
goes away.
You drive by this restaurant and you're like, oh, like going to Vegas for me is really hard. People love it, but I lived a life in Vegas and I have some things that happen there that if I drive by a certain spot, it is not good for me. So, I mean, it's just like that for people who've gone through something. They don't want to relive that. They won't go back to the spot that it happened, or they won't go around the people that it happened around or in that even time frame of their life because of it. It's like never ending. I wish I could say, oh, it's going to get better and it's great and I have the best life ever. But in all honesty, I don't, I do have a good life. And I have a lot of wonderful things I'm doing, but I'm human just like anyone else.
Yeah.
And I'll come home and cry at the end of work sometimes because it's just so hard. And the repercussions of burying my emotions and not dealing with them have manifested in me physically. I'm in constant physical pain. It never freaking ends. And I know it's all related. Yeah. The work that I'm doing, I get why it's manifested. I get why it's doing what it's doing. And it's so interlinked in our emotions and physical body are so interlinked that if we're not taking care of the inside, we're going to feel it on the outside. And we all know that. That's common sense. But to the level of what it is done for me, the chronic pain, the disease, the things that I go through now because of it, I have to get it right somehow, at least to the level that I'm capable of doing, because living like this it's ruining me in a lot of ways. And I mean, the pain is just exhausting as it is. And I know it's exhausting for you because you have to hear about it all the time. So the importance of me getting right on my inside with my head and my heart or whatever that looks like is so important to me right now. And that's why I do what I do. Like the purpose of doing what I'm doing is to help people not feel this way, but also to help me not feel this way.
I think it's so important to highlight that oftentimes I think people that share a story like yours or share some story at all about some hardship or trial that they've gone through, and then they come to the place that they're at today. It's really, really easy to look at people, especially the way that our world is shaped today with social media and everything else, right? That we look at people as being fixed, healed, better than, they've got their shit together, they got over that traumatic experience, right? Like how many books have been written by women talking about their journey and their experience and where they, and so then they become this this character in a sense that is idolized and looked up to because they have their shit together. And so rarely do we really see and hear the fact that they don't, And the fact is, like you said, the trauma doesn't go anywhere. It's not the type of thing that has been magically, even if we have a broken bone, there's always going to be some sign of that broken bone, right? There's some remnant of that thing that exists. And trauma, I think, is the exact same way, where it's always going to show itself in some way, shape, or form over the course of your entire life. And so I love that you brought that up and the awareness of that. And I don't remember what my second thought was off of that, but I have a question for both of you. A few episodes ago, we had a couple on, and they were talking about some similar stuff. And they were talking about at the beginning of their relationship, she shared everything with him, like almost right off the bat. They had been dating for a few weeks, and she basically said, "Hey, here's my bag of shit." And she shared everything with him, right? And Stephanie and I have such a different story than that. We tried to share nothing about our bags of shit with each other, and instead just go ahead and dumped them all out over the course of the last 10 years for each other to deal with and process.
There was that one moment I remember I shared, like, I didn't have it in a healthy way of, this is what I come with. It was, oh, here's all this, run. Why aren't you running? Because I couldn't run. So then I was like, I'm going to make you run.
Yeah. You
Tried to make him run. It didn't work.
So I'm curious what you guys have done or what it looks like from your guys' perspective.
I feel it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, it was.
Definitely in the beginning, I wasn't like, here's my bag of garbage, because I didn't, like I said, I wasn't in that mindset to have a relationship. And I didn't want to share all of that with him because, that's scary.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do that. And I didn't want to scare him away, really, because I'm still dealing with stuff. I'm still, just because I'm alone, like I was alone because I had to get right enough with myself. I was hurting people, just having these meaningful relationships, and I was getting hurt. So I think that, we shared a little bit, but I feel that it wasn't until after the first year when we were like, oh, we're going to be around each other for a minute. This is why I act this way when you do this, or this is why I check the windows and doors and I don't sleep at night, because I'm checking them like 5 or 6 times a night, even though I know they're locked. Just never know. Like, this is why this is happening. Don't you think it's just sort of been a process?
It has, but I think it was in the beginning. It was kind of like, oh, you've been through some shit. I've been through some shit. Okay. Kind of like
Well, there was a knowing.
Yeah, we know it's not, you don't know what it is, but you're like, okay, it's familiar. Like, you've been through stuff. I've been through stuff.
It slowly came out. We didn't dump it out all at once. But that's because I don't think we thought we would still be around. I thought, I'm supposed to meet you and I like having you around, but I probably won't have you around for too long. Because that's just what I do.
So you guys have been together long enough now, but can you feel when she disconnects and disassociates and is no longer really present?
Oh yeah, but it's not her that does it. It's more me.
You do that?
He's the disconnect.
Yeah, I'm more the disconnect.
I'm the one saying, hey, woohoo, where'd you go?
Yeah.
What does that feel like for you?
It triggers me because I have abandonment issues.
Okay.
And the first year that we were together, where he took off a couple of times.
Well, that totally helped the abandonment issues then, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not at all.
That has been really hard.
Yeah.
Not that I'm insecure in our relationship or I'm afraid he's going to leave. It's that I'm not good enough to stick around for. Right? Like, you keep leaving because I am not enough. And I know that's not the case. I know that's not the truth. I know it has everything to do with him and it's his shit, but that's what it's done. Like, it brings up all of every relationship I've ever had, every man that's been in my life, they all take off on some level or another. And here you are showing me that my truth is true. So when he starts checking out, I'm like, Are you going anywhere? Are we okay? What's going on? It's hard.
I had a hard time dealing with, like, if anything got hard, especially relationship-wise, I was like, nope. Mm-mm.
You just didn't want to do the work.
Yeah.
It's lazy.
That's what it was.
It's lazy.
Well, what I'm sitting here thinking about, because I can see it's really easy for me to see how Stephanie has, how I fill the role of man in Stephanie's life, right? And so oftentimes I will, when she's triggered, when she's experiencing something, when she's going through something, I become the energy of masculinity in her life, in a sense. And oftentimes, I mean, it's good at times, right? It's a wonderful thing. But what I'm talking about is like, I get the, what am I trying to say, babe?
You're trying to sugarcoat around it so you don't trigger me. Just
Don't
say it.
sugarcoat.
No,
That's your rule, right?
What I'm trying to, like, I can see how I'm playing the role of all of the trauma and shit that she went through with men over the course of her whole life, how I get to now play that role in all of these different experiences for her, right? Mm-hmm. Both good and bad. And so, like, I recognize that level of, like, just an energetic exchange, as well as like just the literal sense of that role is now not my responsibility. That's not what I'm saying, but it's like that happens, right? Where he has this action, then it triggers that in you, right? So I do something and then it triggers that in Stephanie, or whatever the case may be. I see that really clearly. I'm going to ask you a question, because I haven't ever really thought about it from this perspective, right? Mm-hmm. It's really easy for me to look at that dynamic of women and how women are, how women have certain relationships with men, and then men, you know, in quotation marks, become X, Y, or Z for women, right? Like, she's got abandonment issues. Stephanie has abandonment issues as well. Like, there's just a variety of things that we could check off the list that women have in regards to men, and then the men that are in relationships with those women then have to bear that along with them. I'm curious now, as I'm sitting here thinking about this, what I have in regards to women that Stephanie has had to carry. Like, what Stephanie does that triggers something in me, so then the way that I react and respond and connect and feel in regards to her, she's bearing the burden and the brunt of, like, what women have been and or done, or my relationship with women has been over the course of my life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I completely understand.
So let's fucking think about this for a minute and brainstorm, because I don't know if I've ever thought about it from that perspective of the flip side. It's so easy for me to be in the space of like, well, she, you know, intellectually I realize that this isn't me, that's her trauma rearing its ugly head, and I'm just the guy that's stuck in this spot right now, and I can, you know, move through that, and that's okay, and I get it, and blah, blah, blah. But I'm sitting here thinking about, like, so obviously the original relationship with women is going to be with my mom. Mm-hmm. And the majority of it I would label as good, but there's plenty that's not, right? There's plenty of, like, abandonment issues with my mom. I remember very clearly, like, crying. I don't remember for what, but I remember, like, my mom not being there, or my mom leaving, or something like that. And I was little. I mean, I would have been, you know, maybe 4 or 5 or something like that. But I remember, like, just sobbing hysterically because she wasn't there. My mom worked a lot. By the time I came around, I've got 2 older brothers. And so early on in my life, she worked at home and she babysat other kids, but I wasn't really the main focus for her at any given point over the course of my life. And so I always felt like an afterthought, and I always felt like I came second, third, or fourth, or fifth, right? Or just had to fend for myself and didn't really have her as an ally or as a support. So just that alone, I can see totally how I'm like, well, fuck women, right?
Yeah.
Fuck you. Like, if you piss me off, you're going to do everything that women do in my life, is just, you know, not be there for me. So why am I going to waste my time to try to, I didn't mean to flip you off.
You're fine. I knew it wasn't mine.
So I can see that simple dynamic.
Yeah.
What do you think in regards to like your relationship with your mom and how it in turn has tailored how you interact with AJ?
Oh, 100%. I've seen there's things that has affected it. She's even brought up to me that because I don't know how to explain this, especially with like past women, but there at some point in time before me and her like officially started dating, there's been this reset. I've just, any women that I've dated in the past, I've just never held, like, you know, just kind of that how the shoe flips. But when you do go as far back as to like my mom, yeah, my mom they were busy. They worked. My mom worked her butt off. That's just what her and my dad, that's what they both did. But my dad never did the beatings in our family when I was growing up. It was always my mom. Like I said, I can only go back maybe, if I can remember right, my dad only hit me once, and that was when he was on the phone and he just booted me in the butt. That was it. So that was my mom. But we went to daycare from the time I think I was 13 months until I was in, I think, just past 6th grade.
Oh, wow.
So we were in daycare. So after school, we'd go to daycare, and her name was Hope, and she was the most wonderful woman. Wonderful. She taught us everything. And, you know, especially growing up, like, you know, respect, discipline, stuff like that. Like, you know, taught us how to, our coloring and stuff, even beyond what school was teaching us, she was teaching us that much more. And that's just what that's who she was. But then when we go home, you know, I still felt that we were loved by my mom and stuff like that. But I just know that it was just your basic home, you know, like you get dinner, get to go out and play.
Just taking care of the necessities.
Yeah. And that's just kind of how it was. But me and my mom, we're very close.
Now.
Was there physical, like you said, mom dealt out the beatings?
Yeah.
What did that look like?
Just, you know,
spankings and stuff like that?
Yeah, just if you messed up, you messed up, you got what, you know, as a child, that's what you got. That's what you got. You got your beating, you know, if you messed
got
up.
Your butt whooped.
And me and my little brother, we were assholes. Like, we were growing up. We terrorized everything. Like, we thought we could touch and play and break and anything we could touch, you know, anything we get our hands on. So and then like,
so let's look at that. I don't mean to stop.
But with me, like, how does that affect us?
That's why I'm rolling back to that spot right there. So it's like, I've had, like I said, I kind of had two mother figures in my life, especially with, you know, with Hope and then my mom. And it's one thing that comes to my mind, in the forefront of my mind, is that as I'm very short conversationed, and she loves to
go deep.
She loves to go deep, but the thing that's coming to my mind is more of like she asks, she loves details, and I'm not a very detailed oriented person. I'm not. I just not. She wants no, like, and if I say like, oh, my day was good, it was good, you know, and then I might say like, oh, I did this, and then she was like, well, what else did you do? Did you do that? What? So
he gets frustrated.
Yeah, I get really
He's
super
like,
frustrated.
I just did that.
And I've been really, that's something just recently I've been really working on. Like, me personally is trying to work on with that, because I know that I think I would probably say that about 95% that it come from my mom, because my mom was the same way. She would always ask, well, how was your day? What did you learn? What did you do? And then even, I know, like she said, she was very busy. She was a traveler, so she traveled a lot. And so she would be on the phone asking, like, oh, what are you guys doing? What did you do? Did you get this done? And I was just like, you know, especially when I'm in the middle of something, I'm just like, oh,
so I'm like,
stop,
fine, I don't want to know
it.
about your day.
Yeah, so it does get to that. So that is something I look at, like you were saying, is just going back that far from my mom, that's something that I carried over. But most of that other stuff, like, I've reset completely.
He has come so far. When I think about when we first met and how closed off he was to where he is now, it's like night and day. And that's not because of me. Like, he showed up for himself, most definitely. He made a decision, like, this is something that I do ask for when you're in a relationship with me. Like, you've got to show up. But at least have the effort behind it. If it only looks like this, even though I wish it was like this, at least, try. That means like everything to me. If you can at least say you gave it some effort, even if my expectations are a little different, which they have been, and that's something I've worked on. So we've had some kind of compromise where I have high expectations and he hasn't always met them, but then I have to check in with myself, like, why are they so high and why did I expect that, and work on that for myself. So it's been good that I ask him, how was your day? And he tells me, and I'm like, well, tell me about it. How did it make you feel? What did you think when you were doing it? And all of those things. I can see how that would get annoying for someone who doesn't think that way or want to share every single stinking detail. And so it's really been good for both of us in that regards, because I've been able to work on myself and my expectations and my level of receiving. And it's been good for him because it's also opened him up to sharing more than it was good.
I'm sitting here thinking past my mom and then like what other specifically like trauma in relation to women and how that would have influenced like yours and I's relationship today. And I don't have like some overly traumatic experience involving women, but I'm thinking about like, I was thinking back to like first grade and having a crush on this girl. Shout out to Destiny.
Hey, Destiny, what's up?
And from that point on, like even at first grade level, right? 6 years old or whatever it is, I can think about every woman, right? Quote unquote woman, girl, obviously every female in my life. And I never felt like they liked me or wanted me in a sense. And so I'm thinking about how that played a role, because I think about Destiny, and it's not like Destiny and I were cute little boyfriend and girlfriend. It was like I liked her, and then she moved away, and then after her it was Alicia, and it's kind of sad that I remember all. I don't think it's sad. I think it's beautiful. It's wonderful that I remember all their names.
I even know their names. It's very beautiful.
But even, just like I can go down the line of little crushes and quote unquote girls that I liked, and, even girlfriends that I'd have like later on in life in my teen years and things like that. And not a single one of them I ever thought liked me. I always thought that I had somehow managed to trick them into liking me, or I just got lucky, or it was only a matter of time until they weren't going to like me. And then in high school, I can think about like 2 or 3 specific, maybe 4 specific girls that I knew liked me, right? And I treated them like shit.
Yep.
So what the fuck? Like, why as a 6-year-old little boy did I have, some sense of women don't like who I am? And then at some point, the realization of, because it was clear, like I can remember very, very clearly girls in high school that I knew liked me. It was obvious, right? Like it wasn't me thinking, it was clear that they liked me. And bless their heart, I treated them like fucking trash. And I did some really shitty things to all of them. Just straight up treated them like trash. That's sad. And so I think about how those two dynamics now play a role in our life, right? I'm not as much anymore, but I still, like if I get triggered in some sense of the word, or if I have some sort of, like at the beginning of the episode, we were talking about how, like emotionally and mentally and things like that last year was so taxing, which didn't leave a lot of room for anything else. So like if I'm taxed, if I'm stressed, if I'm in a not the greatest spot emotionally or whatever, then I will definitely go back into that space where I don't think you like me. And it's only a matter of time. And then I've definitely treated you like trash over the course of our relationship at times. So what the fuck? Somebody have any insight? Anyone? Can you relate, Derek?
I can.
It sounds familiar.
I can relate because this was actually right before me and her had got together, as that's what I was doing, and it wasn't as far back as like I can remember some in high school, but that's what I was doing. It was just like, yeah, completely treating them like trash. But like I said, I understand at some point in time, right before it was like right when me and her met, I just did this reset that I stopped really giving a fuck about. Like, if somebody doesn't like me, they don't like me. Like, I'm with her and I'm committed to her. But at any point in time, if something came along or something happened, if somebody else got involved or she just didn't want to be with me anymore, I just got to the point to where I was just like, okay, let's just be honest with each other. Let's, and I don't know why I've gotten to that point. I don't know if it had to do with the military, because that was a big part of my life, because I was made fun of my whole life. People thought red hair was a disease, freckles were a disease. Growing up in elementary school, I got picked on, beat up. That's just what it was. And at some point in my life, I just stopped. Like, I stopped really, like, I'm there. I'm here in the moment. I'm with her. I'm with the people that I'm with, or whoever that day. At the end of the day, like, I just stopped. Like, I don't, like...
You let it go.
Yeah. It's gone. Like, I live every day with her, and I spend it with her, and I love her very much, but I know if something happened, that I let it go. Like, of course I'm gonna have, like, you're gonna feel it. You're gonna feel the emotions.
He's disconnected. In a way. I mean, that really is a form of disconnect.
Yeah.
That if we weren't in each other's life, or I wasn't in the picture, he has this story in his head that everything's going to be fine and he'll just move on. Like, he has no attachment to it. That's a disconnect mechanism.
No, it's not that I won't feel like, and I won't have any feeling or anything. Like, I disconnect. It's just at some point in time, I know things happen with people in life. Like, I get it. I understand things happen. Like, I'm here. I'm present. I'm with her. But like, and she is, because it's a question that me and her bring up with each other all the time. Is like, it's about jealousy or talking.
He's not a jealous.
I'm not a jealous person. I know that she works in a business where she has to talk to guys, especially about emotional stuff, deep and emotional stuff with other guys. And I don't get jealous about it. Like, I'm not jealous about it. I know that I've felt it before. I have felt the jealousy. But like, when it comes down to like being over jealous, like I used to be. I used to be that way, especially in my previous marriage. I was that way.
And I have a lot of guy friends. I have more guy friends than girlfriends.
Yeah.
But it's also a trusting.
Yeah, that's what I was.
I'm like, here's my phone.
I have I trust her with, I have so much trust for her. So I just believe that she would be completely honest with me, And so I don't know where, like, at what point in time, going back to like back to your question, I don't know where at one point in time where I did shut it off, but like, I shut it off from.
You just made a choice.
Yeah. So it was between my mom, when I met my mom to now, I shut off. So, but I still have the same effects from, like, the relationship with my mom.
What can you think of anything that kind of stands out that she does that triggers you? And I don't mean there's plenty of things I'm sure that she does that drives you nuts at times and that are kind of annoying and frustrating.
No.
But like,
questions
really from like the space of like, if suddenly you have a physical response, you're activated inside of your body, you have maybe something that causes you to disconnect, something that she does that triggers you.
Yeah, it's like I've explained, it's the detailed questions when I gotta explain.
Okay, so
That's one of the.
It's taking the time and making the
Yeah.
effort to have a real conversation versus a passive conversation.
So when she takes the time to have a real conversation with you, what, like, let's go through it step by step, because there's a reason to this, right? I'm trying to understand.
Yeah.
What do you have awareness of what your body feels first and foremost, like strictly on a physical level?
Irritated.
Okay, so irritation, where does it come up from? Like, does it, like, suddenly, like, you have like this
Yeah, I just
fucking
get tense, and I feel like that. Like I just get really.
You get irritable.
Yeah, I get super irritable. Like I just get really like, and it's not just the fact of like her questions. It's like it's everything that's going around. Like I mean,
Do you feel like you're getting questioned, not like about your
Yeah.
day, but just like you feel like you have to defend yourself?
yeah,
In a way. Okay.
in that tension.
That's
You're s-
exactly what
Yeah.
happened.
Can
Doesn't
you-
matter how I ask.
So getting questioned and
I really-
having to like account for
every moment.
every moment, your actions, whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
Do you feel like that stems from those conversations with your mom growing up
Mhm.
when she's on the phone
Oh, yeah.
and she wants to know what's going on, and you know she's calling at the most inopportune time and she's not
I
really
can
listening?
see the connection in that.
Yeah, big time. And the thing is and to be completely honest, is like I used to like I would be short because I was trying to lie.
Trying to lie, trying to cover
In the
up things.
beginning
hide
of our
things.
relationship.
Yes, and that's what I did, especially when it was about video games.
Oh, that's so fucking
He
fascinating.
Because
has
I
a
would.
video game addiction,
Mhm.
and I cannot stand it. The only thing in our relationship I feel that causes a split between us because I can't relate, and I look at it as an addiction of not dealing with anything else in the world, anything. And so when I'm like, how was your day? And he's like, it was good. Well, what did you do? Not much, just hung out. Well, what does that look like? Like, what'd you do? And he's like, well, I play video games. Oh, so you play video games for the last 5-6 hours while I was at work, you know, working, helping people and cleaning. And you just sat here and played video games. Like, that's what's going through my head. And I'm sure he can feel a lot of that energy. And not to take the conversation away from him, but
Yep.
he stopped telling me when he was playing video games because he knew it was a trigger for me. Like, I was like not okay with it. And so that is something that we've worked on. Out of everything in our relationship, that has been the biggest pain in my side, and obviously his.
I think that's been our biggest overall issue.
Well, I think about that dynamic of hiding something, right?
Mhm.
Like you talk about having conversations with your mom and trying to keep your answers short because you didn't want, you know, I can relate. I can sit there and totally think about like not wanting to reveal something that's going to get me in trouble, not wanting to say something that they're going, you know, to like, I can just totally relate to that. And I'm thinking about like our son, right? We've got this 14-year-old kid that lives in this house that's a fucking monster right now. And you ask
That
him how his
age.
day is and super fucking short answers,
Oh, yeah.
right? And
I do that. I like take him class by class
And
by
try
class
to
to lunch.
interrogate him.
But I'm not interrogating him. I'm trying to draw him and learn about him. What's going on with your day? I want to know what your life is like, what your experiences are. And it did not dawn on me that he's like, I didn't do anything wrong.
yeah. And so I'm
Just
thinking
like,
about my actions now in relation to you, Steph, and how I wonder if I have a similar thing because I can't really shut up.
I know there's a lot of similarities going on.
Right?
And let me just say this, like my biggest thing is phone conversations, period. I don't like them.
Like
I
talking
don't
on the
like
phone.
well texting on the phone. She can even vouch for it too, because I'm not,
Neither one of us like to text.
and like I've learned to like now that like I mean even to kind of fix the whole and help, I started to try to call her sometimes through the day, you know, on my lunch break and see how she's doing or want to hear her voice and stuff like that. Like probably not as often as I should, but that's something that I've kind of helped on my side of it, and I know it probably
Made an
helps her
effort.
too. Yeah, like that. But that's my big another big part of it is being on the phone. Like I don't like this. I don't like this.
Yeah.
But you like this.
But I do like this.
See why I'm so confused.
Right?
Baby, can you think of anything that jumps out immediately that is like the...
Pick one. Okay. The phone calls, for one. That's one that we can relate to. He's the same. And it's like, I see you on the phone all the time. Like you're not having personal conversations, but I'm like, I know you can talk on the phone. And when we're home, it's fine. But when he's out of town and there's the sporadic text, I don't want to mess with him. When he's working, he'll tell me that, you can go ahead, I'll get to it whenever. But when he's done working, I want to talk to him. Like, I miss him. I've been dealing with a 14-year-old and trying to figure out a grocery trip, and you're in some Hawaii or some amazing place, even though it's not like I want to talk to you. I want that connection. I want to hear about what's going on. And he does not do well on the phone with me. You'll text back and forth. I'm like, why the call me? What are you doing? You're watching, call me. Why are you watching Shark Tank right now? Call me.
Because it's a good show.
But I want to talk.
What about another role that what about baggage that I have with women that unfortunately you get to bear the brunt of?
I think the big one is tied it. You saw it with our relationship on that little bit, but it is very much a feeling not worthy, feeling like not enough. And then when you do feel like enough, then it's, well, now I'm done. Now I don't really want to deal with you. Now I kind of want to, you have better things to do now than deal with.
See, but that's the way that your brain interprets it.
It is the way that my brain interprets it, because I don't know how else to interpret it when it's, now granted, I'm taking our entire relationship.
Yeah.
I'm not saying there's remnants of it in this time frame, but it's like our relationship as a whole. It was very much, you work fucking hard for me when I am hard to reach. But when I am not hard to reach and I am all there, you just cannot be bothered. And there is so much of that. And it triggers me too. And it makes me feel it's hard for me to allow my space, that vulnerability with you. And I'm trying so hard because I know these are also my issues. It's not just yours. It is like we coincide with these very well. We're doing the same shit show dance on a lot of things. But
Statement of the whole podcast, shit show.
If I know that once I do that connection, that then I'm overbearing. My love is too much and you're going to pull away. And so to try and find that medium of how much can I give? How much is acceptable? And then, well, fuck that. I'm not playing any of this. And go ahead and try all you want. You're now no longer going to reach me. So it goes from yours to mine, mine to yours. And we have all this wonderful in the middle, but we definitely dance on the ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Isn't that how relationships are, though? I don't know if we ever dance on the same line consistently and long term. There's definitely always this ebb and flow going on, and sometimes it's more on your side and sometimes it's more on her side.
And there's also a big control factor.
Yeah.
No,
that
I don't like controlling anything.
It is
I'm very
much
easygoing.
Very much.
I don't know anything about that.
Okay.
So.
Hey, I'm a boss babe. I just try really hard not to do it at home.
I'm incredibly controlling, and to the point where it's not nice to live with me.
I have to give a little caveat there.
Hold on, don't protect me yet. Let me finish talking.
Okay, okay.
No, it is that at times. It's very much a controlling, manipulative asshole.
Manipulative, okay.
Yeah, and it has been over the course.
Do you feel that it is on your side of things? Do you feel control and manipulation?
It has been.
Or is he being hard on himself?
No, it definitely has been.
It has been. And has is a past tense. There's still some ingrained behaviors.
It's like anything else, like you were saying with trauma, right? It's never going to go away. Mm-hmm. The reason I control is for safety. It makes me feel safe because so much of everything in my childhood was not controlled.
Right.
It was very out of control and I didn't feel safe. And also it's just learned behavior from watching my father. And so he was very, very much like controlling. This is how everything goes. He ran the show. And when he wasn't, because I have this, not weird, it's not like super strange or weird, but my dad would work like 3 days a week. So he'd be gone and would stay at his job. And then he'd be home and then he'd go. And so my entire childhood was my dad gone for extended periods of time, a few days, and then home for a few days, and vice versa. So we had a very bipolar life, because we lived a certain way when he was home and we lived a certain way when he was gone. And my mom, when he was gone, I could totally, she would just throw her hands up in the air and be like, we don't have to fucking do anything now. We don't have to control anything, right? And then we'd wake up in the morning on Saturday and hurry up and vacuum and straighten up the house and do all these different things because he's going to be home at 8:30 in the morning. But my mom is also controlling, and she's controlling in a different way than my dad is. And I actually probably mirror her more in that sense, where I control for safety, because I can see how my mom did that because of her childhood and her upbringing. So it's just this very structured. I mean, my mom and I, Steph, we laugh about it now, but like when we go over to the house or it's Thanksgiving, or we, like there's a certain way to load the fucking dishes in the dish drainer. And where does your mom like
I can never
this
do it right.
cup put? And my mom will say, it doesn't matter, put the cup wherever you want, it's not a big deal. And then she'll fix it.
She comes behind you. And
right. And I'm the same way, right? Everything has a very specific spot and a very specific way to do things. But if you ask me, I'll be like, I don't care. Do it however you want. It's not a big deal. And then secretly I'll just be like,
and then you reiterate, just do it however you want. It's fine.
Yeah.
You're like, no, it's not.
Exactly.
But there's something that you're missing with it too, that you don't know. And
I'm not missing anything.
No, you are. And I'm so grateful that you have no idea. And it's what other people are hearing with this control, because there's different types of control. There's two like very different types that are singling out or sticking out to me. And I'm sure that you understand, which is why you're like, do you relate to that?
Everything he has said, I'm like, wow, you're really giving me a lot to think about, because I relate to what he's saying. I'm the same.
With that, it's the surrounding.
Yeah.
There's the control of where people have to control other people in an abusive relationship, and to where like I would have to account for money. I would have to account for my actions. I would have to account for my whereabouts. Yeah, that is not it. I still behave that way though. I get scared and I like explain things and explain myself away. Like, he fixed the stove. He balanced the stove the other day, yesterday, and he swept out. And that was when he's calling me out on, because I'm like, I'm sorry, I do sweep under there. I just don't do it all the time. And he's like, are you really valuing your worth off of this? I'm like, yes. Get my So there's that. He doesn't control me or others. He controls his environment around him. Right. And so that's where we try.
That's
and
a good
fit.
way to, that's a good distinction.
Yes.
Unfortunately, when I'm in control of like my environment around me,
you're very powerful.
Well, that then bleeds over to the people that are in that same environment with me, right? My partner, my kids, my family. And so that's been a really big learning process for me. Like that's the thing that I am most controlling during time periods of stress and anxiety. And do you know what I mean? When things are really, really activated inside of my body. And when I'm not in that state, then the statement of like, I don't care, do whatever you want to do is very accurate. It doesn't cause me stress and anxiety. It's like, I don't care. We can do however this, whatever the case may be. You're smiling. Like,
no, it's so
like,
true.
That never happens.
It's so true. It is. But then like, nobody dares to move in that though. We're like, really?
See, that's the thing that sucks.
What's the end game?
Right?
Now I know how you feel.
Steph and I complement each other so beautifully in so many different ways, but our traumas also complement each other so well. So that simple dynamic of she feels frozen and she can't move, and even though he might say that this is safe to do, I can't really do it. The reality is it's 100% safe to do, right? There's no consequence for putting, like, she reorganized the kitchen one time.
I made a big stance about it too. I'm like, I did it. You can't.
Like she put the towels in a different drawer, folded them a different way, did all these kind of things, right? And I think it was when I was gone.
I did it when you were gone.
And I came home and suddenly things were kind of shifted up. I didn't care. was totally fine with it.
That is your growth.
But that dynamic of how she feels so afraid and so nervous to do something is her trauma.
Yeah.
And so my trauma complements that beautifully at times to only heighten that experience for her, and then vice versa. Like, this isn't sugarcoating anything.
Okay.
Your trauma of being an abused woman triggers me at times because my mom was an abused woman. So like seeing her react and respond and behave differently in accommodation to my dad pissed me off, even like on a subconscious level. So when I see you behaving and acting like an abused woman, it pisses me off. But it doesn't piss me off in the sense that like your actions and behaviors are annoying me and you need to stop. It's like, fuck that. You don't need to behave that way. And
Not
there's
anymore.
definitely a subconscious part of that is from seeing my mom. My mom was a completely different woman when my dad was gone. And then when he was home, she was way, way different. It's almost like she was gone when he was home, and then she would come home when he was gone. And I don't mean that like in the literal sense, right? It was like she came alive when he was gone. And then to see her disappear when he would show up, I'd be like, fuck that. Like, don't go anywhere. So when you fall into that space at times when you're super stuck in your story and your trauma of being a victimized woman, like, that's frustrating for me, but not from the standpoint of like, hurry up, Steph, and get over your shit because you're bothering me. It's like, fuck that. Don't go anywhere. Like, you're my best friend. Like, you know, we talk about this all, but like, don't go anywhere. Like, I'm pissed that you go somewhere sometimes, and I'm really fucking pissed because it stems from shit that, like, fuck those guys and fuck that stuff. And I know that it's an ongoing journey and all that stuff, but that's some good awareness that we didn't have previous to this episode. So thank you, guys.
I couldn't have said it any better. But I completely understand. I do. I completely understand where you're coming from on that.
Well,
It's a different kind of anger and kind of, like you say, pissed.
Yeah.
Because it's, you know, we're not pissed at you. We're just pissed that, like,
you're having that experience
it's
when you deserve not to have that experience anymore. You deserve to be free of it. I find myself wise. This part makes me all emotional, just seeing the two of you have that dynamic, because one, the controlling thing, how you are, but also from Stephanie's point of view, where you like tiptoe or walk on eggshells because you don't know what's going to set somebody off. Like, living in that mindset is very real to me, even still after all of these years. I ask for permission when I know I can do whatever I want whenever I want, but I'm like, do you mind if I move this and do this or make this or, you know, call this person, or are you okay if I'm on my phone for like 10 minutes while I hurry and do this? Like, I don't need his permission. But I also feel like there's something on some level that I'm going to set him off, even though I haven't set him off. Like, he's not that person. But it's always like there. It's like a learned behavior I have now. Even when I've done everything I can think of to unlearn the behavior, it still is there. It's still very much embedded in me. And it's frustrating because I catch myself doing it. I'll run errands. I'll say, I'm only going to be an hour. I'll be back in an hour. Sunday, I went and ran errands yesterday. I had to run to my shop, get some things. Then I went and got my protein shake and went and I was longer than an hour.
You started to panic?
Panic. Like, total, like, what am I going to come home to? And it's not him. It's just this natural thing that occurs in me now, where I even have in the past, like, I'm going to be 10 minutes longer. Like, yesterday, I went to go pick up my phone to say, I'm going to be longer than an hour. And then I was like, wait, I don't have to do that. He doesn't care that I'm gone longer than an hour. He probably didn't even know it's been an hour, because that's him. But the panic and the anxiety was so there, and I had to take the pause and remind myself, you are not going home to get yelled at or to get choked or whatever that looks like for being late or making one extra stop you didn't say you were going to go do. It's freaky.
Yeah.
I don't know how to change that.
I don't either.
But it's neat that you have a partner who recognizes that in you and reminds you that you're safe and you don't have to have that feeling. Like you don't have to be afraid.
Too.
It's awesome. Yeah. I haven't had that. I know. I've got a lump in my throat. Yeah. I'm doing everything I can not to just like have this moment and bust up crying. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just not what I want to do right now.
Yeah.
But the fear, and that's what I was saying about that movie. It was that's the fear, that anxiety and that fear of not knowing what you're going to be walking into. Like, what personality am I walking into today? Is he going to be happy to see me, or is he going to throw me up against the wall? You just don't know.
I realize it changes my personality so much because my fears come out into I either am like jumpy to no end, ridiculously apologetic and timid, or there's those times when that fire's there and I walk in just ready to fight. And just because I'm not going to take that. He's never done that. He's not like that either. So he also, if I start getting that, he doesn't know who's walking through the door. Is it going to be, am I triggered? Am I fearful? Am I going to be happy? Or am I going to be ready to fight? And you're over there like, I don't care. You don't know what's going to come in.
There's also the disconnected one.
Yeah.
Like the one where you're just gone.
Do you go in your head? Very internal.
Very,
just
very.
hang out there. I
Yeah.
do the same thing. Yeah.
She'll have whole conversations between the two of us that never happened.
You don't know. You're not there.
Yeah, I can relate to that very much. He doesn't even get like angry. He doesn't ever, like, we have fought, but I'm the one that yells. I'm the one that slams doors. I'm the one that is very passionate, and he sits there, which triggers me.
Yep.
Because I'm like, fight with me. Like, show me some kind of emotion.
Yeah.
And he doesn't. He's just like, are you done yet? And I'm like, no.
Like,
takes
so
a lot.
enraging.
I want him to
takes a
like
lot.
hit me or yell at me and tell me whatever negative thing, because that's attention that I know. That's what love looked like for me.
You know
what
how
I
to
mean?
move in those spaces. You know what to do, what to expect.
Yeah. And so now that I'm in this real relationship I haven't had since that experience 9 years ago, it has been something else. I don't know what it has been, but I've learned a lot about myself. He's been such a mirror, right?
Right.
Which I think is good and scary all at the same time. But the safe place that he's provided for me to be vulnerable and very authentic in my experience has been so breathtaking, where before, if that would have happened, I would have been judged or told I was crazy or whatever other negative thing, where he's just been like, have your moment, and when you're done having your moment, I'll give you a hug. He like will leave the room. I'm not doing this. When you're ready to like talk to me, we'll talk. I've never known that. I've seen fights with my parents. I've seen fights in relationship. I've been in fights, and then I have this chill, peaceful fella, and he's just like, okay, you're being ridiculous. Calm your ass down, and I'll come see you in a minute. It's good, though.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yes, it is.
Deep breath.
I'm going to hold my breath. No, AJ, we got to wrap up.
I'm sure it's been a while. Yeah, it's been a while.
Tell everybody, because we started off with everything that you do, and then we went right and ended
We
up where
talked
we
about
are,
trauma.
which is awesome. But
Yes.
where can everybody find everything, right?
Okay, so if you go to soulwanderings.com, that has all of the information on the show that I host. It's a show about journey stories. So it's similar to yours in some ways, but I like to talk about the really, really deep, hard stuff. So usually that leads people to some kind of awakening or spiritual enlightenment or a way of being or something like that. And so generally that's the type of guests I attract. But we also interview just like housewives or whatever, anyone who has a story to share. So soulwanderings.com. And then my shop is Vibes Now, and that's VIBEZNOW.com. And that has the shop and all of that good stuff. Online ordering sucks right now. I'm not even going to lie. That's in the works. And then there's the sacredraven.com, which is the ritual bath line. Things will be popping up here in the next week or so.
Show there's some beautiful packaging here for this. This was a gift, and I'm super excited to try this. And I know you didn't want me to do that because that's not what this was, but it was too beautiful not to share. So against your wishes, I'm doing it.
Thank you.
They're beautiful.
And then createahappyday.com will be coming this year.
That's the gift cards.
Yeah, I mean,
not the gift cards.
The greeting cards when you go to a shop and you're like, there's not a card that expresses anything I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be those kind of cards.
I'm so excited.
What the fuck cards?
I'm already a customer. You don't know.
Yeah, like
so
don't hold back.
Here. Yeah, I'm so excited.
Awesome. Thank you.
You also said you hold classes. Would you have any classes coming up at Vibes Now?
We have tons of classes. So let's see. Our most popular class has been Get Real with Yourself with Natalie Peace. I'm sure you guys know her. And Mandy Thomas. Two very incredible, gifted women. Mandy channels source energy, and then Natalie facilitates it. She's a life and grief coach, and Mandy's the channeler. She also does all different types of sessions. And when I say Get Real, that's the most authentic class as far as this kind of conversation we had. Those conversations happen, and how to navigate through those experiences. So that's coming up. We have group intuitive readings with Misty Rose Merck. We have navigating your spiritual journey and awakening coming up. We have yoga, spiritual tools, honestly, self-help, spiritual classes, how to. It changes every month. So
how do I sign up for those?
You'll just go to vibesnow.com, and you can link to the Mind Body app, which a lot of people are familiar with if you go to yoga or whatever that is. And you can also call the shop or pay at the door.
Awesome.
And they'll be coming online soon. We'll have Vibes classes through KGRA, through Soul Wanderings.
Neat.
That's awesome.
So the radio stations get to pick up the classes so we can share with all of the listeners and people not in the Ogden area.
That is so amazing.
I know,
that's so
right?
big.
We meant to do it last year, but you know,
it
would have been perfect. It was ready for last year, but everything happens in perfect timing.
Yes, it does.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
It's been so much fun. Thank you. Even the hard stuff, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm going to walk away with a lot on my mind, a lot of things to think and feel about. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Me
you.
too.